I wonder if you've ever found yourself in situations, maybe with close family or friends, where you're reacting in a totally different way to everybody else. It used to happen quite frequently when we went away on family holidays when the children were younger, and we'd visit a town or city, whatever, and visit the cathedral and go up the tower. Now that is a real nightmare for me because I've got a terrible head for heights, but for some reason I would put myself through it. And the reaction was always the same. I'd feel my palms sweating and my knees knocking, and I would sort of press myself to the wall furthest away from the drop. Meanwhile, the rest of the family just nonchalantly breezed around, peered over the parapet, and admired the view. If you imagine that contrast, I think you're coming some way to imagining the situation in our gospel story, the very familiar miracle story of Jesus calming the storm. The disciples, seasoned Galilean fishermen for the most part, are scared out of their wits when their little boat is hit by a gale of nightmarish proportions. The wind gets up, the waves crash over the side, and they are in danger of being submerged. But Jesus, exhausted after a day of healing and preaching, sleeps peacefully in the stern. That's the contrast between raw, visceral fear on the one hand and serenity and calm on the other. In absolute panic, the disciples raise Jesus from his slumbers. "Master, Master, we are perishing." And at once he gets up and calms the storm, using an unusual word that you might use for a wild animal: be muzzled. And all is calm and all is peaceful. And the water drips from the open mouths of the astonished disciples. Well, how are we to respond to this story other than with a sense of awe and wonder as expressed by the disciples? Well, as with all the gospel miracle stories, we can't just look at the outward appearance. We need to delve inside. Imagine the story being like an onion. We need to peel back the layers and try and find what lies inside. This analytical approach was already being recommended by St. Augustine in the 4th century. He said, "Let us ask the miracles themselves what they tell us about Christ, for they have a tongue of their own, if it can only be understood." The miracle we admire on the outside also has something inside which must be understood. He goes on to say that if we see a beautiful piece of handwriting, it's not just enough to admire the elegance of the script. We want to know what it is saying, what the words actually mean. In the same way, a miracle is not like a picture, he says, something merely to look at and admire and to be left at that. It is much more like a piece of writing which we must learn to read and understand. When we read the miracle story of Jesus calming the storm, we need to peel back the layers and dig deep into the foundations upon which this story is constructed. And when we do this, we come up against something quite extraordinary. We find here nothing less than the jubilant celebration of God's ancient covenantal promises being fulfilled. In short, the remarkable claim that lies at the heart of this miracle story is that the God who had chosen the people of Israel as his special people, who'd rescued them out of slavery in Egypt and accompanied them on their journey to the promised land, who had stood by them even during their times of stubborn waywardness and rebellion, who had willed them to return from their exile in Babylon. He is, once again, walking amongst them. And he's chosen to do that in the shape and form of a skilled artisan, a carpenter from a not very distinguished town in a backwater province occupied by foreign armies. It's like our miracle story is saying in big capital letters, this Jesus is him, the God of our forefathers, the Lord of all creation, the Word made flesh, living right here, right now, right among us. And what better way to express that life-transforming, world-changing good news than through the rich, poetic language and literature of the Old Testament, in particular the Psalms, the songbook of ancient Israel. There we find eloquently expressed their anger, pain, fear and frustration, but also their deep-seated faith, hope, joy, thanksgiving and praise. Well, how do the Psalms connect with our miracle story? Well, historically, whenever Israel suffered storms of war or invasion or persecution, the psalmist calls out to God for help. God, wake up! You've done wonderful things for us in the past. Help us now, because we're in deep, deep trouble. Here are verses from Psalm 44. Rouse yourself. Why do you sleep, O Lord? Awake. Do not cast us off forever. And then you get Psalm 107, which is so close to our gospel story that it's worth reading at length. Some went down to the sea in ships and plied their trade in deep waters. They beheld the works of the Lord and his wonders in the deep. Then a stormy wind arose which tossed the waves of the sea. They mounted up to the heavens and fell back to the depths. Their hearts melted because of their peril. They reeled and staggered like drunkards and were at their wits' end. Then they cried to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them from their distress. He stilled the storm to a whisper and quieted the waves of the sea. And that message is there too in the wonderful psalm that we heard this morning, Psalm 65, a beautifully rich song of praise to the God of all creation. With wonders you will answer us in your righteousness, O God of our salvation. O hope of all the ends of the earth and of the farthest seas. In your strength you set fast the mountains and are girded about with might. You still the raging of the seas, the roaring of the waves, and the clamour of the peoples. This psalm is a wonderful song of celebration and thanksgiving to a God who is generous and merciful and compassionate, and who pours out his blessings endlessly through the bounties of his creation. The river of God is full of water. You prepare grain for your people, for so you provide for the earth. You drench the furrows and smooth out the ridges. You soften the ground with showers and bless its increase. You crown the year with your goodness, and your paths overflow with plenty. And Jesus is the living, breathing, tangible presence of this bountiful but invisible God. He is the one who was there at the beginning of creation, shaping it and blessing it and giving it life. And he is there again on the waters of the Sea of Galilee, stilling the storm, calming the waves, and bringing reassurance and peace to his frightened followers. He is the one who brings healing and restoration to the sick and the lonely, and welcome to the abandoned and the excluded. He is the one who opens up for us the possibility of a new relationship with God, adopted through him into God's intimate family. He is the one who, through his death on the cross, reveals to us the true nature of God's reconciling love for each and every one of us. That he wants to live in close and intimate relationship with us, forgiving our wrongdoings and nurturing us and blessing us and bringing us joy and peace. In our doubts and disbelief, in our anxiety and fear, when we feel abandoned and alone, Jesus comes to us and reminds us that he is with us always. With him we can face things together. He calms our storms and shares with us his peace and gently asks us, "Why are you afraid? Have you no faith? Peace, be still." So whenever we feel anxious and afraid, whenever we feel lonely and alone, whenever we feel that it's just too much, that we're battered and bruised by the storms of life, we need to turn to Jesus and remember these words. We heard the music group singing them before the service, and we'll hear them sung again during communion. I think they're attributed to St. Patrick. Calm me, Lord, as you calmed the storm. Still me, Lord, keep me from harm. Let all the tumult within me cease. Lord, enfold me in your peace. And when we do find that sacred place of peace, in the quiet, intimate space where Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are one, we know that this peace is not just for us, but to be shared, poured out for our brothers and sisters with all the loving kindness, generosity, and compassion with which we have been blessed. May the peace of the Lord be always with you. Amen.
Good morning. So, Jack included in his prayers news about our new bishop, Dave Ball, who has been the vicar at Marlow for lots of years, but is being consecrated Bishop of Buckingham on Thursday morning at Canterbury, along with a new bishop for Reading, Aston, which is part of the Birmingham diocese, and Europe. So there's going to be 4 of them consecrated on Thursday morning. And then on Saturday morning, there's going to be a welcome service for Dave in the area. We're all really excited to have him coming and working with us. He knows the area so well. And we think there might be a bit of change around, because he and Bishop Allen are rather different characters. So please be praying for Dave and the life of our area. Wanted to pass on a little bit of sad news. I know some of you sitting here will have known Elizabeth Sorrell, and sadly she died yesterday morning. Elizabeth had been in Florence Nightingale for a couple of weeks and has fought an incredible battle with a very nasty facial sarcoma. So she's now at peace, and we will arrange Thanksgiving for her in due course. This week has got all the usual things for sparklers, Thursday morning communion, and then I need to remind you about the electoral roll. So this is a year where we wipe it clean. Everybody needs to be signing up to be part of the electoral roll. And if you haven't been on St Mary's electoral roll, you're here regularly, I would strongly urge you to do that, please. It's our membership. If you feel you belong to St Mary's, then if you're 16, over 16 rather, and regularly worship here, then you're entitled to be part of our electoral roll. And we're encouraging you to do that electronically. So if you get the update, you will have seen a little bit of the front page that shows you right in the far right top corner where it says to register. You click on that, you'll then see what the next picture on the update shows you of the information we would like you to fill in. Once you've done that, you can then log in and you will be able to sign up for the electoral roll that way as well. If that's all gobbledygook beyond you, there will be paper versions, but our preference is that you do that electronically. It is Lent. Ash Wednesday is a week on Wednesday, 5th of March. So we've got a service here at 6 o'clock, which is a Sun Communion and imposition of ashes. Please, could people bring their palm crosses back so that they can be done? Well, oh, are we? Okay. There is going to be a pancake party. Nadine's back. There's going to be a pancake party on the 4th. So that'll be after school because the children are at school. And then 5 o'clock comes on Friday afternoon. Update comes. Mr. Mooring goes, that doesn't tell me when and where it is. So there is a poster about our sermon series. I didn't put that on clearly. So, discovering life's purposes. So, for 5 Sundays during Lent, we've got different themes for our sermons that are all out there, and they will happen on a Thursday morning as well. David's back from Tanzania, so Nadine's been to Barbados, David's been to Tanzania, they're back. And there is Wells for Tanzania barn dance on the 8th, if anybody's interested in that. I think there's limited tickets left for that. So, a couple of weeks ago, I told you that we were going to hold interviews for our Pioneer Family and Children's Minister. That happened. And I would like to introduce to you the person who's going to do that. Jack, would you like to come forward, please? So, many of you have got to know Jack. Say he applied for the job along with somebody else. And when we did the interviews, there was no doubt he was the right person to do this. We took them both into school. Jack did things with marshmallows and straws, was it? Yeah. And the children want to know when he's going back to do assemblies. The interview panel was myself, Anne-Marie Foster, Pete Dean, and Yvonne Morris, who's the sort of main children's person for the diocese. And Yvonne recognised something in Jack as well, so which was great for us to know we were choosing the right person. So we've still got to do a couple of checks, but we are appointing Jack, work out when we're going to start, and because I know he's itching to get going. So Jack, we are thrilled that you're going to join us as our Pioneer Minister. So. And there's one more notice that I forgot to do. On Tuesday at the Christian Centre, there's a lunch. Oh, I don't know what time it is. Anybody been to them? Know what time they're at? Sorry? 12 o'clock. 12 o'clock. Thanks, Jim. This week it's pasta, bacon, salad, and cheesecake and ice cream. So if you want to do that, could you let Jackie Bossian know that you're going to go and join them for that. Thank you.